I'm Josh Penny. You are the Director of Social Impact at Hinge to the podcast. I'm so excited to have you on. We kind of go way back. We go back in your MailChimp days when you were in corporate citizenship. And I feel like when you joined Hinge, I was so excited because number one, I was like, ooh, Hinge is so cool. And I was so excited that this role existed. So I'm excited to dig into what you've been working on and invite you to the podcast.
Christina, it's so good to be here. Thank you for having me. I've been following along with the podcast for the last couple of years and excited to finally get to talk to you.
So let's talk a little bit first about what your work, what your role is like at Hinge. So tell me, because Hinge is a dating app. And I feel like I only know dating apps through my friends, and they're super fun when you're like, the person kind of going, ooh, that person looks kind of cool. So tell us about your role at Hinge, because Hinge is a dating app. So for those of you who, are partnered up and may not know that, tell us about, why this role exists and your work.
Yeah, so Hinge, we call ourselves the dating app designed to be deleted, and we're all about helping people find those intentional connections. And that's sort of like our lane in the dating space. When I joined Hinge, there was an opportunity to figure out what social impact could mean for a dating app, and
Yep.
I was so excited about that. It was I never thought about doing social impact work at a dating app, but when I started to talk to the team and really got to know Hinge, the act of forming relationships, forging connections, the impact that has on our mental health, on our well-being, our physical health, it just all started to click. And so my job as director of social impact at Hinge is all about how do we live that purpose outside of our app? How do we sort of help people forge connections out in the world, in person,
Yep.
and whatnot.
I love that. And that's kind of a bold move for a dating app to be like, wait, how do we get people in real life off the app? Right. I love that as your tagline. And as you were speaking, one of the things I was thinking about was like, if you've heard of the blue zones are like areas across the world where people live the longest. And they kind of can't figure out, like, it's not this one diet, like, it's not the Mediterranean diet, it's not this or that, though the Mediterranean is one of the spots that has a blue zone. And a lot of times what they see is it hinges on community. It hinges on friendship and like in-person connections. Those are the people who have those community friendships, those relationships that live to 100 like that. So anyway, very cool. We're going to dig into what prompted this conversation. So you posted on LinkedIn about One More Hour, and I was like, you have to come on the podcast. Everybody needs to know about this. So tell us about One More Hour, what it is, who it's for, all that good stuff.
Sure. So One More Hour is Hinge's platform for encouraging in-person connection amongst specifically Gen Z.
Yep.
Back in May of 2023, the Surgeon General released a landmark advisory on the loneliness epidemic in this country. One of the things that struck us the most is the decline in time that we're spending in person with others. And so if you were a young adult in 2003, you got 1,000 more hours every year of in-person connection time than you do if you're a young adult today. And when you think that's like mind-blowing, and when you think about everything that could happen in 1,000 hours and how that might add to value to your life, it's a real deficit of modern life. So One More Hour is all about that. It's a collection of campaigns and partnerships, programs that are intended to help people add in more time, more in-person time to their routines. And so the first thing that we're doing is this $1 million grant initiative.
And tell us about that. So what is the grant initiative?
So the grant initiative is all about finding clubs and social groups in Atlanta, in New York, and Los Angeles, because connection is hyper local. And so we wanted to find 3 cities that Hinge had meaningful connections to, but also, that community level is where connection happens. And so it's all about finding the book clubs, the running groups, the surf groups. I don't know if there's surf groups in Atlanta, but there might be in Atlanta. And people who are building in-person connection time on a regular basis. It's recurring. And so we're really looking for clubs. And, we were really inspired by, as we were doing research for this, this notion that people used to join a lot more clubs. It used to be a
Mhm.
bigger part of people's lives. You may have heard of Bowling Alone, the Bob Putnam book that's pretty famous about this dynamic. And we wanted to sort of bring that back, and we thought it was a really useful tool for Gen Z.
That's so cool. Okay. Yes. I think people did used to join a lot more clubs. And I think now maybe the misstep is people are finding their community online and thinking that's enough, like box checked, right? And skipping the part of the in-person piece. And I was digging into that Surgeon General's advisory, and we'll link to it in the show notes. And one of the pieces I think that was a little more drilled down for me, I was like, that is a lot, was that social engagement with friends has decreased 20 hours per month.
Yeah,
Like if you think about that, that's 20 hours per month is a part-time job. Like
yeah,
only it's the good part. It's communicating and, hanging out with your friend, being in that book club, that run club, something like that. The other one that the two notes I wrote down was that isolation is up, which I think will come to no shock to anyone because I think we really, really saw that as like almost an effect of 2020 is that like
yeah.
really kind of that isolation. And then the other piece for me that I kind of went, yeah, I think that's true, is that family engagement is down. So for those folks, whether it's your family in your home or extended family, just that sort of like Sunday dinner or like whatever version of that is down. And it's like, yeah, it is. And I'm curious, Josh, what you think, because as you've kind of spearheaded this program development, like, what do you think? What's the why behind that? Like, what do you think is the why behind the decline in all of this
Yeah,
happening?
well, our social networks are shrinking. Like you brought it up. Part of the reason why people are spending less time is because there's all these reports about people having fewer friends.
Mm-hmm.
There's reports about people being more estranged from family, right? And so our social networks, our in-person social networks and lives are getting smaller. I think like you could look at the way that cities are set up. You could look at the decline in third spaces.
Mm-hmm.
We used to live in a country where people would go to a happy hour after work, like religiously, or church attendance,
Ooh, good. Yeah.
and so those facets of life have changed. And then also there's like technology, right? And the internet is an amazing resource and allows us to do lots of things. But there are some ways where it might be displacing time that we spend that we could be spending with others in person, especially around our leisure time, and we sort of like use our leisure time instead to consume
Yep.
content, to scroll on TikTok, all of which
Yep.
could be like fun and could feel good in the moment. But we know that that in-person time is really healthy. It's
Yep.
good not just for our mental health, but our physical health too.
I went to like what was it? What did I go to? A like female founders dinner. That's what it was. Like a big, and it was big. It was last year. And I walk into this room. I'm like, oh my God, there's like 200 women here. Like I wasn't ready. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I felt this immediate like learning curve, even though I've been in these dinners, I've been in these rooms before, but it was like everybody had the QR code instead of a business card. I don't have a business, like I don't, and it was like this sort of like, oh gosh, do I belong here? Oh gosh, is this for me? And then at the end of the night, it's like, it's been so nice to be around these women, to sit at a table and just talk and just like, do you know what I mean? Just connect and
Sure.
laugh and just misstep and all of the things. And to have somebody go, here's how you get a QR code for your LinkedIn, Christina. And like, here's how you do it. And at the end, I joined, it was a membership and I joined. And they said, we've got all of these online events throughout the year. And then we do 4 in-person
Mm,
things in 2024. And I was like, sign me up. I don't know that I'm going to go to the online ones, but I
sure.
know that like this is a muscle, not only that I want to work out, but like that is worth doing. Like it's worth doing. And it was like I kind of forgot for a second. And so
Yeah.
I just want to offer that. Like I think it happens to all of us, even if Even if it's like, oh yeah, you kind of convince yourself like online's enough, or I already am connected with that person because I'm friends with them on whatever app. No, 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 no. It's not the same. It's not the same.
Well, what I love about what you just said is you found a group that offered like a very easy structure to plug into. And that's so important. And when we talk about like the lack of third spaces or like the decline in like church attendance or Kiwanis Club, right?
Yep.
There are just fewer and fewer of those structures. And so like finding something that's easy to plug into, which is why we've been focused on clubs and social groups and organizations built around an activity.
Yes.
It makes it so much easier. It makes it so much
Okay.
easier.
One other light bulb moment in this, and I want to offer this because it's a little bit different, but I think this proves what your kind of theory, which is my friend Christy started this book club, and the
Mhm.
book club is based on this principle, and it was you can read the book or watch the movie or neither. Come once a month to hang out, and we're going to talk about it. And I was like, "Can I join?" And it was the first time that I've ever said this book club is for me. She in it that she figured out what the book slash movie was going to be for the next 12 months. She made it very easy. And I don't have to feel bad if I watch part of the series,
Right.
read part of the book. It was just this like it took the friction out. And so I talk a lot about friction in my business and in marketing, but that's a friction point of right. Again, do I belong here? Is this for me? Oh, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do. And she's like, just come, come. And I'm like, oh, that sounds
Absolutely.
fun. That's awesome. So
Absolutely.
yeah.
There's I mean I'm in the world of dating where dating is like high friction, right? Where
Yeah.
we bring all of these expectations, all these wants, these desires. And with friends, it should be a little easier than that, right? And what we don't want to do is suggest that, you know, just joining a club is going to like solve everything, that like you get there and that like no more
Yep.
loneliness, but it allows those relationships to happen organically. It allows you to meet people, but it also sort of like, because you have a book or a movie in this
It
case,
anchors,
it
right?
anchors it.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah. So Priya Parker talks about this in the art of gathering. Like when people gather, they need a shared purpose, right? And when you give them that, that informs that connection versus if we've all been to the dinner party where it just feels like the hodgepodge and no one really knows anyone, but no one's really facilitating and saying, hey, this is Josh, da, 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 right? And there's no flow to it. Priya talks about that when you have just, even if it's just like, I think January's is the Joy Luck Club. It's like, boom, I've heard of it. I remember that movie. Read the book. That's the anchor, right? That's the piece. And it sort of informs that connection. So that being said, I want to talk about who should apply for this grant. Like who's the ideal, it could be a nonprofit, doesn't have to be. So let's dig into that.
Yeah, so we're based in these three cities, as I mentioned:
Yep.
Atlanta, New York, LA. And the other really important thing that we're looking for is like a focus on Gen Z.
Yes.
And the way we're thinking about that is like a plurality of the members of the people involved need to be Gen Z. This is when we talk about who is most impacted by the loneliness epidemic,
Yep.
18 to 26-year-olds are like high on that list. And there are actually, I mean, for a long time when we talked about loneliness, they only focused on aging populations. And so there
Yeah.
hasn't been a lot of initiatives and things specifically for this group, and that's why we're focused there. We're looking for smaller organizations, so people, orgs with a budget under 500K,
Yep.
and we're looking for groups that have some sort of programming where it's a regularly recurring structure. So not one-off events or like a big festival, which are important, but we're looking for probably like the smaller, like getting 30 people together to go on a hike every
Yeah.
week, that sort of thing, is spot on. And then, like we recognize that when you want to focus on smaller groups and grassroots groups, that like 501c3 status isn't necessarily like the best marker for that. And so
Yep.
we're open to groups who may have 501c3 status, who might have 501(c)(7), might have a fiscal sponsorship,
Yep.
might be in the process of securing that, or on a case-by-case basis, or we're happy to look at other instances. Um, I think like when we think about what this, maybe who this might not be for, I think the only thing I would add is we're looking at uh, there are lots of like sort of commercial social clubs, right? Like the Soho House. This is not for the
Yes,
Soho.
yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes.
So
Yeah.
yes.
The great point. Yeah. And there are a few that came to mind here in Atlanta that I'm like, oh, I'm glad they're here.
Yeah.
But this is not that. This is not that.
Right.
Yeah. No, I
We
think that's
love
a
we
good,
love Soho House, but yeah.
that's right. Okay. Um, I think it's interesting too, the focus on Gen Z and needed, right? So if you even go back again to just 2020, I mean, those were the kids who graduated high school with nothing, like literally there was no send off, right? That first year of college, maybe they went to online, they took a, many of them are doing the gap year, many of them are not. It's like the isolation kind of piece really stacks up. Um, and so that piece, it helps that my nephews and nieces are older. So I'm like, I see it. I'm like, they got one earbud in at the table. The minute they hit that kind of teenage year, I'm like, get that earbud out. Like there's this online piece that's really, really built out. And the in-person social aspect, I think, is a huge opportunity for us to help kind of not curate, but help invite them to, right?
Absolutely.
So, okay. I want to talk a little bit about the introverts because when I think about like, I think about just online, social media, all of it. I have these two opinions that I hold true and that are very, very opposing. It's like the most wonderful thing. Like, I have an aunt that I've never met in real life that I get to connect with on Facebook. It's amazing. Thank you, 23andMe, right? Like, found my long lost aunt. Like, that's awesome. My family that's overseas in Greece get to hang out with them. It's so good. And it also can be doom scrolling, rabbit hole, trolling, all of the things. And I think the other piece is somewhere in the middle that isn't as binary. It can feel like I'm consuming content and so that's how I'm connected, which is sort of the misstep, right? Is just like I feel like I caught up with my friend, but I didn't really because I actually didn't interact with her. I just saw her content, right? But there are a lot of introverts in the world who may say the thought of showing up to your book club, Christina, sounds just very nerve wracking, right? The
Sure.
thought of showing up to your run club or like whatever it is, I'm 20 and that sounds awful. What do we say to them?
Sure. I mean, like their experience is totally valid, right?
Yes, yes.
And what there's lots of ways into building in-person connection time that don't require you to join a group or to do something like that might feel deeply uncomfortable. This is the first sort of initiative that we're starting with, but it could be for someone who is an introvert that they do have one or two friends who like maybe they do want to just sit and read together and not speak to each other.
Yeah.
Like that's good. That's enough. That builds connection. That
Yep.
like starts to activate the things in our brains, right? That's good for our mental health that feel
Yep.
protective. Um, and I think sometimes we think about either like the quantity of connection or like the number of people that we're talking to or like how many people are available and versus the quality, and the quality is what's important. And I would just encourage people, it's sort of like exercise. It's
Mhm.
sort of like healthy eating. It's like how can you fit this into your life in a way that makes the most sense for you.
Yeah. I think that's right in line with how I think about it. And I've been thinking about this concept of how we can kind of let things atrophy, right? And one of the things that I think I've seen is it's very easy as an adult to let friendships atrophy or making new friends, like that skill set, that muscle of like, how do I make friends again? Of, I did that in college and I just kept those people, right? What is it like to make it, right? Those new connections. And I think that, and dating, same thing. It's like you can think that it's really hard to go out on a dates or whatever the kind of the piece is, or you're not a natural at it, or you're not good at it. But I think the mistake in all of that is that like often it's just under practiced and it's just like that first step. One of the things you said that I think is really helpful is like, yeah, if you're an introvert, then walking into the room of 200 people who are dressed in like business suits, which is basically what I did, yeah, that's going to feel uncomfortable. And you know, no one, right?
Yeah.
Like, gonna feel maybe don't sign up for that one. And it's like, instead, I'm thinking about my Tuesday night ceramics class, right? Ooh, that's way more comfortable. Half the people have headphones on, the other half they love to talk, and I get to decide where I want to sit. I get to decide if I want to do my own thing. I get to decide if I want to ask questions and write notes and ask the teacher for a fourth time about that glaze because I can't seem to remember it. Like those pieces make it, that would be much more comfortable with me. And I'm also doing something tactile and working with my hands. And for many people who maybe are a little more introverted or nervous or experiential, that piece could work really well for them, like in real life. Yeah.
Absolutely. It's what we hope people do is see the connection that their social health has to their overall health,
Yeah.
and then like make the best choices for them.
Yeah.
You know,
One of the things that I think is this like meme that's gone around for years is like JOMO, like the joy of missing out. Do you know, have you heard
yeah,
that saying before? Okay. I think that JOMO exists. Yes, it exists. We've all had the person cancel and you're like, thank God they canceled. I get to stay home and watch Netflix. That's true. And when that person doesn't cancel and I do go to the thing, there's times I don't want to go to my ceramics class Tuesday
yeah.
nights. How many times I drive home and I'm so glad I had that conversation. I'm so glad that I was just in the room. I'm so glad that I took the step to like maybe make a new friend, maybe make a new connection. That's I think the root of the magic of this program. So let's talk a little bit about like dreaming on outcomes. What would you love to see as an outcome of this kind of first cohort launch grant cycle, which I know applications are live now? What do we hope comes from it?
Yeah, applications are live now through the 30th of
Okay,
January. And these are grants that they're all the same size, 25K.
love
And
it.
we want to see people have ideas about how they would invest in their own group and what they think would bring more people in, foster more connection. And ultimately, when we worked with DoSomething.org, or if you're familiar with them, last year to help dream this up. And so they're experts on Gen Z, like a youth-run organization.
Yep.
And we did lots of interviews with Gen Z. And one of the things that became very clear is like, how do I just find out about what's out there? What are their clubs? I didn't know, right?
Yeah.
Where are they? How do I find someone to go with? Are they free? Are they low cost? And so part of just what we want to do is we want to like find dozens of these groups in these cities and just elevate them,
Yes.
shine the spotlight on what they're doing, show how cool it can be to be a part of it, lower the sort of social anxiety of joining. And so that's one big outcome. And then I hope like bigger picture, people, especially other funders, other people in the social impact space, start to see that if we should have like joy and fun as part of our strategies
Mm.
when creating impact, and that this is like a really easy way to do it. And it's something that we should keep in mind when we think about working with the Gen Z who's inundated with doom stories about climate change, and they came of age during a pandemic, and
Yep.
there has to be hope, there has to be reasons to be optimistic, there has to be fun, there has to be reasons to join in. And like once we unlock that, I think we'll see more people coming into the social impact space, wanting to experiment, and tackle some of these larger really serious issues in the world.
Okay, one of the things you said, I'm like, this is so good, is I think many organizations that are in my world, they are writing stories, sharing stories from the space of like the bad news, right?
Yeah.
The bad news, right? And they are like, but Christina, like that's the truth, right? This is the reality of the people we serve, the people are trying to help. But we forget that like it's almost like we're guilting people into taking action. And that is like not a great feeling to donate. That's not a great feeling for me to join, sign up, donate, take action from if I'm like this dire thing, right? Versus what you're talking about is like making room for the fun, making room for the joy, and having a little bit more harmony in that story you tell. And I just want you to expand on that a little bit more. Expand a little more on the plus side, the other side of it.
Yeah, I've been working in social impact a long time, both on the nonprofit
Yeah.
side and then on the corporate side. And we are sort of trained to start with the problem and to do a deep analysis of the problem. And
Yep.
I think like we should still start there. But when we
Yep.
think about comms and how we bring people in, we don't have to we can sort of ease them into this like larger analysis and like the things that we understand of the complexities of a problem, the scale of a problem, right?
Mhm.
And instead, there's ways to bring in humor, which I would love to see more. I mean, more nonprofits and social impact folks should hire like comedians on staff or something, or comedy writers. Like that would be, and it's not to make light of the very serious issues that are out there, but it's rather like how can I meet people where they are in a way that doesn't like trigger them like
Yeah.
the anxiety alarm bell in
Yeah.
our heads, which for a lot of what we're seeing for Gen Z, we've seen the rise of this term climate anxiety, right?
Yeah.
It causes people to freeze
Yeah.
and it actually promotes inaction rather than action. And that's the opposite
Yep.
of what we want to be doing.
Oh, you're in my brain. So I have this email marketing course and it's all about like storytelling.
Yeah.
And I want to say it's like module 2. Their homework assignment for it is go watch 15 minutes of stand up. And the point is a couple of things. The point is to just like, whoo, okay, not everything is disaster relief and just whoo, walk away. The other piece is like stand up are so great at getting you hooked into a story right out of the gate, get you smiling. And sometimes they are talking about serious things. Sometimes they are talking about not slipping on the banana peel. Like it's not always the lightest thing. And so that's so funny that you said that. And it is a good reminder because our sector can lean on what I would call like it's like stop the bleeding level of storytelling where it's like hurry, stop the bleeding, put a band-aid on it, clog the leak, right? Versus painting the picture of possibility, painting the picture a little bit more forward focus, which is probably why when you shared this on LinkedIn, I was like, yes, yes, yes. So, yes. Okay. One question that popped up as we were going into it. So we have applications open, and then how long is the grant cycle for this? So how long does this program run? And then will there be, I know we're going to get people who are like, I'm not in Atlanta, I'm not in LA.
Sure.
What
Yeah.
about me? So
Yeah.
so I'm going to ask you to paint the picture going forward. Yes.
Well, this is a pilot. This is a new initiative, and so we're excited to see how this first year goes. Right, this first cycle is through the end of the year. In addition to like after people are awarded the grants, we're working with the Foundation for Social Connection,
Hmm.
which is like the foremost expert on social connection in the country. They helped a lot with the writing of the Surgeon General's advisory. They're creating materials. We're going to be doing some convenings with these groups about how to like make those connections in your group even better, stronger,
Yep.
tactical, very tactical level things. And then we'll assess then, and we'll see how it goes. We'll see what feedback we get, see what we learn, and think about what to do next. But this commitment that Hinge has to one more hour, to connection, to tackling loneliness is a multi-year commitment, and so I expect more from us in this space.
So excited. Anything else before we wrap up with the final question? Anything else you'd like people to know?
Hmm. Um, I think if you are trying to figure out if this is for you, apply. We purposefully designed this application to take less than an hour. We felt like we couldn't say one more hour and like
Thank you for
have a
that.
long application.
Yes.
So there's like some demographic questions, like
Okay.
some maybe three one sentence questions, and then three like short answer questions, right? And
Yeah.
so and then we encourage people to share materials that they already have made and just like upload it, even
Yep.
if it's for another funder, another thing that you applied for. Drop it in. Like you don't have to change anything. You don't have to
We
give
love
us
it.
context. You know,
We love it.
so just like if you feel like this is for you, like this could be for you, maybe apply. We want our thinking, every time you design a project like this, you have people in mind that this could work for. But what I'm most excited about is just to seeing who throws their hat in the ring and like who
Yeah.
expands our thinking about who is helping Gen Z foster more
Yep.
connection in person. What could that look like? And I'm just so excited to meet the folks who are doing this work.
So what I'm hearing is if you don't have a grant writer on staff, if you've never written a grant before, maybe for our smaller organizations, go, go, go. Please don't let that be any sort of barrier to
Yeah,
applying. Yeah. Okay, cool.
absolutely.
Amazing. So the last question that we ask every guest on the podcast is what is one thought you'd like to share that you like to think on purpose? So this could be like an affirmation, a mantra, just like a quote that you love. Would you share that with us?
Yeah, I think that sometimes we've been talking a little bit about this with the humor front. Uh,
Hmm.
on in social impact, we are working on such big, complicated, messy challenges. And sometimes the other thing that we can do to help bring people along is like break it down to the smallest first step. And that's okay. That's a great place for like the majority of people to start. And that's what we're trying to do here is we hope that by people seeing these clubs, these groups, that like maybe they'll say, oh, maybe I'm not ready to start my own surf club in Atlanta. Uh, but maybe I am ready to start a skate group where we just go to the like and we just meet on every week at this time, right? And so help people find the smallest first step.
That's so good. Thank you for sharing that. I think that it's very easy for things to be so daunting in our world that it's impossible to make any traction. But it's like, what's that 1%? What's that next best step? So thank you for sharing that. Thank you for being on the podcast. We will link the application to the notes and everything that we talked about. And we hope that everyone either applies, tells a friend about this, because everybody knows somebody who is probably the right fit for this. So make sure you're sharing it. And applications close at the end of January, correct?
January 30th. Yep.
Awesome. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much, Christina. This was great.